We are working to end homelessness one life at a time. Roof Above is looking at the big picture needs of our community, but also the needs of each individual neighbor in front of us. There are hard-earned victories at every level of this work.
One of the biggest things that affected our work this past year was the encampment closure. In that 72 hours, we had to come together and do something we've never done before. Our team worked day and night alongside a number of other organizations to help move hundreds of neighbors into motels. Because of that work, there are many people now housed or on their way.
Getting our neighbors into the motel has given them a place to come home to, get connected to health care and 3 meals a day, while we work on their path to housing.
The men that come to our shelters have been through a lot. We offer them dignity and the tools to get them back on their feet.
Everyone's path to housing is unique. Everyone has different obstacles to overcome. Every step forward is a hard-earned victory.
We were able to get Mr. Key's Social Security benefits approved immediately, and that gave him back so much hope.
Mr. Matthews applied for the same job 20 times, and he finally got a yes. He never quit, and that's what keeps me going.
We worked with Mr. Sims to try to get his birth certificate for 2 years, and when he finally walked through that door with it, he was overjoyed. We all were.
Ms. Jackson has been homeless for years, and when we told her she was going to get an apartment, she just wanted to decorate everything and have us over for dinner. She really just wanted to make a home.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you for supporting us so we can support our neighbors.
Thank you for making our work possible.
Thank you for being here.
Welcome to True Blessings.
Hello, I'm Liz Clayson-Kelly, CEO of Roof Above, and let me join with my teammates in welcoming you to our 15th annual True Blessings event. Whether you are joining us on your computer or your phone or with friends and family, we are so grateful that you're sharing time to learn more about the work of Roof Above. We're so grateful to all of our sponsors who've made this event possible. We especially want to recognize our leadership sponsors, Mock Products and the Oliver Private Wealth Management Group, as well as our platinum sponsors, Davis Moore, Honeywell, Lexus Financial Services, Lowe's Foundation, Robinson Bradshaw, the Andover Group at UBS, and the Vicker Family Foundation. What we raise today will help us support operations year-long, where we serve more than 1,200 people on any given day through a variety of programs, street outreach, a day services center, more than 500 emergency shelter beds, and more than 700 housing solutions. You and your generosity make all this work possible. Thank you. The theme of today's event is hard-earned victories. We thought that summed up this past year perfectly. Yes, the work has been hard, no doubt, but there have been victories, real victories worth celebrating. I started talking to my colleagues, my teammates, about this theme, and what I found time and time again is people would share particular moments in time. You heard some of those moments in the welcome video, so I thought it was fitting for my time with you today to share 3 moments that stand out to me in this past year. 3 moments that to me crystallize the heart of this team and the theme of hard-earned victories. The first moment happened in late January. It was a Wednesday morning, time for our leadership team meeting, now a Zoom call. I took the meeting from home because I was under the weather, runny nose, headache. I was so exhausted, it felt like work to sit in a chair. All signs of COVID. I was awaiting my own test results along with about 300 others. You see, our Tryon emergency shelter, the largest emergency shelter we operate, had gone all of 2020 without a single positive COVID case. But in January, one right after the other, we had 5 positive COVID cases. We worked with the health department to test everyone in the shelter and all staff. We were about halfway through leadership team meeting when the results came in. They were not good. Dozens of our guests had tested positive for COVID, nearly all asymptomatic, and 3 staff members had tested positive. I was one of them. I really can't tell you how devastating this news was. The team worked so hard to put together the right COVID safety protocols. We felt like they were working, given that we'd gone all 2020 without any positive cases. But now here we were. We had to act quickly and decisively. Decision 1, we'd work with the county to move all positive guests to the county's isolation and quarantine motel. Decision 2, we would work to shut down our try-on operations and relocate in a motel-based shelter where we felt like we could operate more safely. And decision 3, we had to face the fact that I was in no state to lead an organization facing a crisis, and COVID was nothing to play with. The leadership team gave me permission to rest, to sign off. They assured me they had it, and they did. By Sunday morning, all guests at our shelter were being retested on their way out the door as we closed down Tryon and reopened in a motel. All of this was done in partnership. Dr. Raynard Washington from the health department was on our patio during the testing. But it's not really that quick action that I want to tell you about. It's what happened between Wednesday and Sunday. You see, on Wednesday, we learned that our shelter was in a major outbreak. We knew we could move to a safer operation in a motel, but we had to keep operating shelter, which meant our staff had to keep showing up knowing we were in a major outbreak, risking their health and the health of their family. They kept coming to work because that is who this team is. We show up when we're needed most. The second moment happened about a month later. It's Tuesday around 4 p.m. I looked at my phone. I had an urgent text to reach out to the county. I called and learned that within an hour, I would receive a copy of a public help order. The North End encampment, the more than 200 tents gathered on the side of the road, outside uptown, outside the gates of our day services center, would have to be cleared within 72 hours due to a rat infestation. I was speechless. The North End encampment was problematic. There was the obvious lack of human dignity that comes from sleeping outside and very clear health and safety issues. And yet there were people there who'd slept there nearly a year, people whose every possession laid in those tents. Incredibly vulnerable people, many with mental health challenges. And within 72 hours, all of these people and their possessions were going to be moved. The task felt impossible. The county shared plans that they would be opening a motel-based shelter to offer this to folks leaving the encampment. They asked if Roof Above could lead staffing operations. At this point, we were already operating 3 motel-based shelters. But the ask was not an easy one for us. The staff had already been stretched beyond what we thought was capable. One sleepless night, lots of prayer, and some late night text chains later, we found a way to say yes. We added 2 staff members to our team within 12 hours. We reassigned roles and added work to already existing full plates, and we partnered with grassroots groups and new ways to find bandwidth where we had none. So many people said yes to this motel option. A second motel was needed, and Block Love Charlotte stepped up to lead those operations. Together, this community moved 214 people off the streets, unsheltered, into motel-based shelter, all within 72 hours. But the work wasn't done. Not everyone had left the North End encampment, so the outreach team that worked so hard all week returned to the encampment that weekend. Working with CMPD and other grassroots groups, they went tent to tent to find anyone who'd not left. The shared goal was to help people find an alternative that did not end in arrest, as we'd seen happen in so many encampment clearings across the states. And the team met that goal. Beyond the immediate needs of shelter, this team went to work finding housing solutions for folks. To date, nearly 50 people from that North End encampment motel have moved into housing, and 50 more are on their way. Given that on average, people in the encampment had been homeless 2.5 years, we think this is a hard-earned victory worth celebrating. This is a team who finds more to give when they don't believe it's possible. This is a team that rises to meet the moment. The third moment happened just recently. I was on the Greenway and connected with Robert, a former guest of our shelter and recent graduate of our MEC Home housing program. Robert is a college graduate who always held a job, but didn't quite earn enough to have his own apartment. So he stayed with people, he paid rent, but his name wasn't on the lease. So when he had a conflict with his roommate, he found himself abruptly without housing. Fiercely independent, Robert spent the next month sleeping in parks throughout the community. It took a friend who himself had benefited from the services of Roof Above to convince Robert to come to the shelter. Robert came here. I'm standing in what was the former lobby of King's College. It became home to Kings on Lamar, one of the COVID innovations of which we're most proud. I can remember when the pandemic came, we were searching for how do we find more space? We knew we needed to get through this pandemic. We knew King's College had closed at the end of 2018. We tracked down the owner, found out that he was actually a supporter of our work. I can remember sitting just next door to here at Independence Park with two colleagues after we toured the building. My colleague Joe Hamby had a dream of how this space could be used, not just for more shelter, but different shelter. How could we offer new services for working men? We began to sketch out how in the world we would staff that, how we would pay for it. And in just a few weeks and a few miracles later, we had leased the building, it was repaired, it was furnished, and we were welcoming guests like Robert in. That's why it was so meaningful when Robert told me, Liz, at Kings on Lamar, that's where I found the peace I needed to get perspective. Peace. Peace gave him the perspective that homelessness was temporary. This was not where he would always be. And so with that profound truth, he went to work. He said yes to our MEC Home housing program, a program for working men that pairs men with roommates. And through there, he met April, our employment specialist. He told me on the Greenway, God and April, that's why I'm standing here today. Through April, they started working on his plans for growing his income. The warehouse job he was in probably didn't have much of a future, so he said yes to an opportunity with Atrium. He joined the environmental services team, and within 6 months, he was promoted to professional role as patient ambassador. Today, November 16th, Robert is signing his lease in his very own name, first month's rent and security deposit paid for with the money he saved. And Robert is by no means the only success story from Kings on Lamar. In the 13 months the program operated, 104 men came through these doors and left to permanent housing. That's a nearly 70% success rate. Pretty phenomenal considering that the program was pulled together in just a matter of weeks. And that's because this team met this moment and dreamed not just how to offer more shelter, but more impactful shelter. That's what this team makes possible. And I will tell you, we learn how to do this from watching folks like Robert. Every day we serve people whose life has become unraveled, and yet they face it with courage and resiliency and begin to rebuild. And that's what we long for as Roof Above, that our tenacity can match the tenacity of those we serve. With your support, you've made all of this work possible during the pandemic. So I ask you, if we could do all of this together in the pandemic, what is possible beyond this time? And now I'd love to introduce you to Bill and Laconia, two of the nearly 700 people Roof Above has helped move home since the pandemic. Bill and Laconia are both tenants at Hill Rock Estates, an apartment community Roof Above bought with much help from this community in August of last year. Older apartment buildings are incredibly vulnerable right now to being bought by investors, rehabbed, and rents rising well beyond what folks we serve can afford. So Roof Above bought this to hold rent steady, and then for 75 units, we're able to drop rents to about $200 a month so we can serve folks coming out of long-term homelessness. Enjoy meeting Bill and Laconia.
Housing stock in Charlotte is becoming scarce. So last year, Roof Above purchased an entire apartment complex, Hill Rock Estates. The apartment complex itself has 341 units, and then 75 units are set aside for the chronically homeless to house in the permanent supportive housing, which makes up the Home for Housing program.
My name is LaConya Stewart, and I live here in Hill Rock. I came from Tent City, where we're out there in the rain, the sleet, the snow. You don't get to eat right, you don't get the proper sleep.
It was rough, but me having this apartment, I had it made because I didn't have to sleep on the sidewalk. I had to stay awake most of the time because I'm scared to try to go to sleep. You don't know what's gonna happen.
We do more than just say, here's a place, good luck, see you later. We say, here's a place, let us help you make it feel like home. Let us support you in relearning how to be indoors and access 3 meals a day and laundry and all of that.
They're trying to hang this thing on the wall.
This program is a housing first kind of program, so we house the person first. Our role, we want to keep them housed. Some may come in and they've never really lived in an apartment environment before. And so our role is to try to help them adjust. Client says, okay, I want to go to substance abuse treatment, then we try to facilitate that. If they need mental health services, then we try to facilitate that as well.
The first time I met Wild Bill was before COVID, and I said, I've heard about you, you're kind of legendary, and he gave me the classic Wild Bill cackle.
They call me Wild Bill because I'm what I do. I'm wild. I was in the United States Navy. I got hurt. I was at a gun exploded, you know, and there's 3 people got killed. There's 4 or 5 of us went to the hospital. I got brought back home. I got brought here to Charlotte. I was living with my mother, but see, my mother got sick and she died. And my brothers and sisters made me sign a piece of paper so that they could sell the house. I've been out on the street ever since. About 14, 15 years.
Wild Bill moved in on November 30th of last year. And since then, he's made a lot of changes in the right direction. He still has his challenges, obviously. He struggles with substance use. He was neglecting things like his health care, his mental health. But you can see how housing has changed his life for the better.
They've helped me. They pulled me out of a drunk situation, living on the sidewalk, and put me into a home. I got a home that is mine. It's wonderful.
I've been here, come November, it will be 6 months. This is a nice community. You know, I talk and laugh with my neighbors. I even put smiles on their faces. I grow my flowers. I deal with my baby over there, Daisy. And it's peaceful, it's nice.
LaConya is one of those people who brings joy and lightness to everything. I met her doing some outreach, and LaConya had a sign, and I said, oh, Miss LaConya, have you been out panhandling? And she said, no, baby. This is just to tell people to have a great day and smile.
Yeah, but everybody call me the smiling lady. Because when you see me, I'm like, hey. And I have my little sign that has, please, it says, have a blessed day. It puts a smile on their face, and that makes me feel good. Hey, mama. Hey, big girl. Well, I was the baby, and I'm the only girl. You know, my mom was an English teacher. My dad, he was fell of the land. I mean, sometimes we had to eat cereal with water. You know, that's just part of poverty. But we still made do. Out of, you know, with 10 children, she made do. To be honest with you, I've been homeless at least over 30-something years. That's including living with different people. Whew. They're just heartbreaking for me because I feel a female should not have to live like that. They shouldn't have to be used as an object so you can have somewhere to stay.
I remember thinking how resilient she must be to carry this positivity with her, because she was in the encampment for so long. And I just was in awe of again, the energy that she had and her positive attitude. And that's something she still has to this day.
By them wanting to help me, that makes me want to help myself. You know, they give me that little, okay, you can do this, which I already know I can do this. I just need that little push. I've always wanted my own, and now I have my own.
To be in a position where you're living in a tent with very little and your main goal is to try to bring joy to others just immediately made me want to know her better. And so having her here, I think she's just an important part of this community and brings that joy to everyone here at Hill Rock. That's part of why the relationships that we build with folks are so important, because it was like, I trust you.
Being able to meet both of these individuals where they are and build from there, it is rewarding because you get to see a person at a certain level and then you get to see them grow.
You know, making that step and that transition is not easy. So that's a hard-earned victory in itself. Yeah, your house, but now the real work begins.
If I can encourage somebody else to stride or to walk the walk that I have walked, if any way that I can help, I will.
Roof above, got a roof over your head. I guess that's why they went the roof above. You ain't out in the woods, you got a apartment. I'd love to be a millionaire where I could just help people. I could help them get a place to live, help them get an apartment. There's people out there that need it, they really need help.
Thank you so much for joining us to celebrate hard-earned victories today. In closing, I want to share one more moment. It's a conversation I had recently with my sister. She lives in Northern England and has spent a whole lot of time outside in the pandemic. She was telling me about these rocks near her outside Edinburgh. They're called Hutton's Unconformity. Incredibly old rocks, they formed over millions of years, layer after layer, they were built, and then something happened. Something seismic, something catastrophic, an earthquake maybe, who knows, but the rocks were unearthed and shifted on their side. And then time began again and they built one layer after another. So when you look at them now, on the bottom there are these vertical rows, on top horizontal. She said when you gaze at them, you can see in an instant that change is both gradual and sudden. I've been thinking about this because I'm thinking about that moment when everything shifts, because it felt like maybe we were in that moment for homelessness and this pandemic. When the pandemic came and we had so few tools to protect ourselves, everyone instantly knew the power of home. And then the North End encampment formed in our community, and the response across the community was unified. This is unacceptable. When people could feel and see the realities of homelessness, they responded and demanded responses from others. But now we have other tools to protect us from the pandemic, and now the tents of the North End encampment are gone, but homelessness is not gone. Right now, in this moment, more than 3,000 people in our community are experiencing homelessness. We don't want to miss this moment. We want this to be the time the rocks turn. And here at Roof Above, we're on the front lines, pushing those rocks, inviting you to join us. So we ask you today to give and to give generously, to support this work, to support our teammates that you've met today, and the thousands of people that will go through our programs over the course of the next year. If you're watching on the computer, you'll see how to give on your right. If you're on your phone, scroll down. We also have information on how you can give by text, by mail, or by stock. Thank you so much for making this work possible. Thank you for believing in this work and this team. Thank you for believing in the power of home, and thank you for believing in the weight and dignity of each human life.